Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Saturday, March 23rd. It's day 169. We're here in Washington, D.C. We're actually in the middle of the Gaza ceasefire pilgrimage. I've not been able to walk because I'm still recovering, but I've been on the journey. We started at 5:30 this morning and walkers started at 6. They have 2 miles left until we get to the White House. But I'm moved by the witness of people who've been so faithfully walking around the world in all 7 continents, calling for a comprehensive ceasefire, an embodiment prayer, step by step. And it feels like the Spirit is groaning on our behalf as we walk and cry out all over the world. Not only is this pilgrimage happening in DC, but I wanted to tell you the other states where it's happening also. Not only states, but countries. Saskatoon, Canada, Osaka, Japan. This is just today. Across the United States, Chicago, Phoenix, 3 cities in California, in the East Bay, Davis, LA, Minneapolis, Huntsville, Alabama, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Atlanta, Nottingham in the UK, Quito, Ecuador, and in the Isle of Mull in Scotland. And more pilgrimages will be happening around the world Easter on all 7 continents. And my prayer and hope is that our activism will become a movement and that we can help truly move towards justice and peace, a comprehensive ceasefire immediately. I wanted to give you a few updates. There was the greatest land seizure by Israel since the 1990s that happened when Secretary Blinken right during his visit, Smotrich announced 10 square kilometers, 3.8 square miles of Palestinian territory in the West Bank. That was announced on Friday, just yesterday. This is the single largest land seizure by the Israeli government since the 1993 Oslo Accords, according to Peace Now. While there are those in Israel and the world who seek to undermine our right over Judea and Samaria and the country in general, Smotrich said on Friday, we're promoting settlement through hard work and the strategic manner all over the country. If people don't understand what's happening, they're not paying attention. And friends, you know, this is more than a crisis. I mean, Gaza is a crisis, and we have got to intervene for the sake of Palestinian lives. But there's a lot more than that happening. And this, at a minimum, is ethnic cleansing. And many around the world, and personally, I would agree, this is a genocide. And there's a lot more than that happening. And so I am so grateful for people who are walking and marching and calling for a ceasefire. But this is catastrophic in so many ways. Yesterday in Jerusalem, in the occupied West Bank, in East Jerusalem, a 12-year-old was killed. There's a video that NBC showed where he was launching a firework before he was shot. The Israeli army, in terms of Gaza, said that 800 suspects were detained and 170 Hamas members were killed in the operation around Al-Shifa Hospital. The IDF said that they, many of them were very important Hamas officials. Guterres has said about the line of humanitarian trucks at the Rafah border that it is a moral outrage. He also said that it is time for Israel to give an ironclad commitment of unfettered access to humanitarian goods throughout the Gaza Strip. The Israeli army said it's investigating footage that Al Jazeera showed that has 4 allegedly unarmed Palestinians who are struck and killed from the air in Gaza. The IDF claims the incident occurred in an active combat zone, which it says that the entire civilian population had been evacuated. The death toll is now 32,142 Palestinians, and the injuries are now 74,412. Since October 7th. Hamas has said that 19 Palestinians killed and 23 were wounded by Israeli fire while awaiting for humanitarian aid in Gaza City. And the U.S. officially barred funding for UNRWA through March 2025 after Biden signed the government funding bill into law. 17 Democrats warned the Biden administration that it does not meet the credible and reliable test detailed by the National Security Memorandum. We just talked about that yesterday. And they called on the administration to use the tool to secure the delivery of aid to Gaza by ensuring that the Netanyahu government is in compliance with its terms. And a group of U.S. House Democrats warned Biden that so long as Israel continues to restrict the entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza, I'm so sorry, my hands are getting tired, the continued provision of U.S. security assistance to Israel would constitute a violation of U.S. Existing U.S. law. So those are the two mechanisms I was talking about, both the humanitarian issue and then also the issue of the presidential security memorandum. Relatives of 81 hostages held in Gaza wrote a letter to President Biden urging him to convince all parties, including the Israeli Prime Minister, to agree to a deal that you assess is reasonable. And the Israeli Defense Minister Gallant will fly to Washington on Sunday for an official visit. In terms of the hostage ceasefire agreement, an Israeli official said that the delegation sent to Qatar agreed to the American proposal of the ratio of Palestinians to be released in exchange for hostages. And in Israel, they responded to UN chief's remarks during a visit to the Rafah crossing, where the foreign minister wrote on X that the organization led by the UN Security General has become anti-Semitic, anti-Israel, and that the UN supports terror. Dozens of protesters in Israel are protesting at Netanyahu's house. Hundreds of Israeli Arabs, so this is Palestinian citizens of Israel in the northern Israeli town of Majid al-Kram, marched to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. The procession was organized by Israel's Higher Arab Monitoring Committee, and demonstrations calling for new elections were held Saturday night all across Israel. In parallel, a rally calling for the release of hostages would be held at Tel Aviv's Hostage Square alongside a demonstration by a group of hostages' families. The Rafah offensive White House spokesperson John Kirby said Washington is calling for alternative options that they will share when Israeli officials visit Washington. Kirby said there's 1.5 million people there. He told a news briefing, we believe a major ground offensive in Rafah would be a mistake and would be a disaster. In the West Bank, the Israeli army said that 2 people with Kalashnikov rifles were arrested by the security coordinator. They were arrested without resisting, and they are currently being investigated. And police interrogated Rabbi Elitzer, who runs a West Bank yeshiva and is widely seen as the spiritual leader of the radical right-wing activists. He was arrested on suspicion or interrogated on suspicion of conspiracy to damage Palestinian property. The IDF said the house of Maqdad Mansour, who committed Friday's shooting attack in the West Bank settlement of Dolev, is mapped in preparation to be demolished. And in Ireland, tens of thousands of people took part in a major pro-Palestinian rally in Dublin, with the organizers urging an end to the war in Gaza and calling on Ireland's government to take action to hold Israel accountable. Might all of our governments take action to do so? That is our hope and our prayer.